I'm going to go ahead and, no, go ahead and leave that there. I'm going to go ahead and.
Want to turn up the volume just a tad bit more on that one.
Okay, sweet. I'm going to go ahead and push this live to YouTube. We're going to see what happens today. We have been trying to get this to work with YouTube for every time we've done the session. I spent some time yesterday calling them, making sure that everything was on point and working, and it happened to work. So today it looks like things are coming through clean, but I'm going to let it buffer for just a little bit. Looks like it's coming through on my side as far as a clean signal. So that means we're broadcasting across all the social networks, including Instagram, which is great. And just give me a moment, though. I think I have this open. I have a couple mics open now. Yes. Okay, so hopefully that's the other mic, and so you should be able to hear me on that too now. Just with a thumbs up, that's fine. All right, so we're going to do this. We're going to let it breathe for just a moment. I would love for everyone to get dialed in, especially since we are now broadcasting to YouTube, which is great. I think today is probably going to be one of the heightened presentations for this entire build, which has been a series of 9 really amazing multidisciplinary presentations on quite a few different things, but all pertaining to the grand aspects of life, not only helping yourself spiritually, not only assisting yourself physically, financially, all of those aspects of how things are really designed in our life. We begin to address from the next level of how the technology is rolling out, in this case, Web3, becoming your own bank. Actually having the opportunity to participate in a time where the technologies that we're seeing, why in the future may become somewhat of an issue, but right now they may be actually the tools that are necessary for us to carve out our own level of freeness inside of the reality. So I'm going to let it breathe for a minute, including myself. And then when we come in, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, there's a major presentation today. That's why I have 2 mics. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and begin with a little bit of hold music. Wholeness, everyone.
We have here nitric acid, glycerine, and a special mixture of my own.
The resistance is planning something bigger. To the future, to be exact. The galaxy. The galaxy.
How dare you?
Honest, everyone, we're just giving a few more minutes to breathe on this side. This would be a great time to take a couple breaths. If you were expecting to get into this call today, you wanted to be on time, you actually made it. Thank you. We're glad that you're here. We're just asking that everyone just take a moment, center into yourself. That's what's most important. And get ready to dial into what is another amazing build. We had 9. This is the 6th one. It's spiritual technology, immortality, time travel, and omniscience, right? So we're going in. Prepare yourself accordingly.
You all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams, my childhood with your empty words. And yet, I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction. And all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you?
I can't be the first one who wanted to see my youngest self.
That silence feels great. Okay, so this is it. We are launching off into another amazing adventure and exploration into self. That's really what we do here at Secret Energy. We're here in this special segmentation to announce the formulation of the Secret Energy Foundation and Creator DAO. And what I feel is really one of the most strongest, vibrant missions and collectives here on the planet, ready to deal with things as they come and as they are, and ready to bring things in balance and also bring solutions into the space. So let me go ahead and set the lines really briefly. There we go. Let me go ahead and set some co-host permissions here too. If this is your first time joining in, we give thanks for you. I'm Seven Bomar. I'm the founder and developer at Secret Energy. And I'm also here with the tribe because this is live, not only probably where you're looking at on social media, but also here in Zoom. We're inviting everyone to take a look at the links in the description if you want to not only participate in this amazing quest we have going on, where we're going to be gifting some Warriors of Love NFTs, and we're also going to be gifting some Vector Equilibriums, which I actually have in the studio today to show you, since the context of the build was about spiritual technology. Spiritual technology in itself is very ancient. It's actually not something that's new. The word tech is not a new word in the English language, but it does refer to a specific type of awareness, a specific type of knowledge, and a specific type of system that needs factual things in order to function, meaning that technology is like a car. If you are missing certain pieces, then it doesn't turn on, it doesn't work. But once you get things into alignment, then it actually can do some pretty incredible things. But I do want to actually give a super disclaimer on today in relation to replication. And you may want to write that word down if you need to remember that I mentioned this early in the conversation in the beginning. Replication. What we see is we see this redundancy going on throughout, if you want to call it the universe, the cosmos, or whatever, that there is not only a fractal nature, which is that you can keep seeing the same patterns over and over again, but also a holographic nature, which means that within everything, everything contains the whole. And sheerly from that nature, it lets us know that it's very important for us to adapt the state of consciousness to understand that things are replicating themselves, just like what you would see with trees, what you would see when seeds are planted and new seeds are produced, what you see with us actually making children, and then we bring children to the world and new seeds are produced. So there's a replication that happens inside of society, inside of life. And I sought to really understand what that replication is about, because when we talk about that in the standard context and we say, hey, it's replicating or it's cloning, we at times feel like that's actually a negative thing rather than actually seeing how it connects to everything that we have going on in our lives. And so I also wanted to mention before I finish that statement that if you're actually connected through any of the social media channels and somehow the signal over there is not coming through clearly, we invite you to take a look at the links in the description. You probably can join the Zoom today. And then also know that this will be recorded. It's being recorded in the studio, so there'll be a clean copy for you. So to returning to what I was saying in relation to replication, when I looked deep into it to really see what it was specifically, I realized that it was our way of learning in a stair-stepping process. And what I mean by that, just to give some clear examples, is the soul itself is obviously, or the body, I would say, is a replica of the soul in many ways, that it has the countenance and the form and the vibration and the energy of the soul that is inside of you. However, we can also still say, for those that have gone on those journeys, and this is what we're going to be getting into today, that for sure the soul is a much more powerful vehicle. I mean, it's not something that you really question, because the general vibration and the intensity of that vibration and how you feel it here on the physical plane is upped sometimes 50 to 100x when you enter the physical plane. So just in that relevance alone, it's almost like you can even say that it's possible that this is not life as we know it, the vibrant, well, actually, as a term, life as a term as we know it, right? Because we say that life is, and then we try to fill that in with energy, right? Yeah, life is energy. Energy in what state, though? Because even things that you would call dead may still, or for sure still, have a vibrational frequency to them. So we learn that there's an entire frequency range, and that when you're truly living, as they would say, the frequency is much, much more higher than when you're kind of in this dial back, maybe calm, maybe repetitive mood that you normally could have on a physical plane. And so what I realize is that what the body does is, as a replica of the soul, is it allows us to begin to understand more about the soul, i.e. understand more about ourselves and what that really means and who we truly are, especially when you figure out that we're actually everything and you're just in this successional process of everything being revealed to you. And how that's going to roll out, especially for humanity, is it's going to roll out in what I'm calling advanced intelligence. And all which they're calling artificial intelligence. But all advanced intelligence is simply a replica or a display of what is inside of something that is far more deeper and far more complex. So it's important to, or some would say super simple even. It covers all those ranges. So we're in this process, if you may. It's like training wheels of understanding what we're capable of doing, who we really are. And I came in on this on a certain leg of the journey where I was brought in front of that for 2 weeks. I went into this immensely high vibration. And in that process, I saw and I experienced many things. And I set off with this one objective, and that was to open the eyes of the beloved. This was the term that was being used. It was a reference that was made to, even if you become super advanced, you still hearken back or think about those that you cared about, hopefully. Some believe that super advanced means that doesn't happen, but I'm telling you that's probably the wrong direction. Actually, super advanced means you become more empathic, you become more aware, but you just know how to deal with all of that. You become a very strong, grounded being. So rather than sometimes, crying, because crying is a very healthy emotion, but it does mean that in many ways you're being squeezed and your aura is being squeezed to its extent. But in that, you can go into a situation and you could deal with a situation without falling all apart and going into tears. This is when you're able to handle higher vibrations. I always call that the war medic. The war medic is a very interesting position because it's like you didn't even really come to kind of fight. You came to save, but you're saving people who are fighting. So it's a weird position, right? The war medic. Just think about it, like dial into it sometime. And just be aware, like when you really understand the magnitude of life and what it looks like and what it means to put it back together, you can probably imagine maybe some war scenes where maybe some parts are removed. And what's the guy hollering? Medic! So he wants you to come over there and deal with that mess, right? And it just so happens that when you're in that state and somebody will be able to come and assist you, you begin to feel calmer right away. Like at least somebody is assisting me in on this. So today is really the verbal launch of our roadmap to escape death. If you wanted to, maybe write that down for yourself too. It's like, when did that whole thing start? So when you see me like 15 years later and, we've achieved hyper immortality with total awareness and we're fully connected into the astral plane, the whole nine, and we're simultaneously dreaming and all that. When y'all say, well, when did he announce that it started? Today, publicly. Because what I'm also going to do is, just bring everyone into some parts of Spirit Tech Laboratories and where things are now. And, what we really plan to do, especially in this space. Because remember, it's like, if it's not on the billboards with millions of views on YouTube and on Instagram and then CNN too, and on World Star, then technically it's almost like it's not even happening in today's world. And sometimes I think that, if you're developing something and it's really integral and it's really, really polished, you may not want to bring all of that in. It's kind of like, you buy some land, you got lush tropics going on, then you decide to invite everybody from, I don't know, wherever they fleeing from right now. Everybody's kind of there, they depressed, they want to be back at home, you're trying to help them. So there's a lot of dynamics that come into, just developing and designing and creating. And there's a lot of responsibilities that also come with that. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to charge, let me see, what are we going to use today? Charging the heroes and the heroines. Right? The ones that you came into this reality and you've done some things, you've experienced some things, and you really get the hang of how all of this works. You found yourself on what could be called the good side before. You found yourself on the bad side before. And then now you're realizing that you need to actually be in the center. And you're trying to realize how do you do that, though? How do you do that legally? How do you do that financially? How do you do that emotionally? How do you do that spiritually? Because those are all the bodies. That's why I say he's got a mental body. He's a strong mental body. That's the emotional body. So this is, when they say everybody, this is what it's actually being referred to. Everybody, all the bodies, and their dispositions. And anyone who wants to come in and play war medic, I welcome you, because that's pretty much what it's like dealing with people who go to work. That's W-O-R-K. W-O-R is war, okay? They worship, so they're always up in somebody's church calling up on something that they have never talked to, acting like it's just all that sweet out there, right? So there's a lot of war going on because everything is pretty much warfare. if you really understand the real laws and legalese and the structures that we're in, this is war. And either you are captive and compliant or you're belligerent. It seems like there's almost no in between, but there is. There's a stage of wholeness that is able to be reached where you're able to maximize your energetic field, but that doesn't mean you're actually dying or toning it down or going away. And I gave an analogy about this. Like, imagine I got a car that once it hits 280 miles an hour, it's just coming out of second gear. Versus somebody else can have a car that is the limit, maybe 280 miles an hour. Still for cars, that, you ain't finna, you're at like 160, 140, right? But then you got other cars that it's much more. Let's talk about wind. Like a boxer. Basically, these are beings that can run at your highest capacity on idle. And this is what we have to be in this reality now. Like, when we talk about cranking this up, it doesn't mean that go and deplete all your energy, though. So I want to take a moment because I see it says my connection on this side is unstable. And what I want to make sure of is that if things are thumb up. All right, so shoot, if you're unstable over there, just catch that. I'm also monitoring the chats. It's glitch. It's not working for me. Well, we got you. Just get every third word, like reading an old scroll. They'd be like, this part was badly damaged. And I was like, that's ironic. It gets badly damaged right when it was about to spill the beans on the whole thing. You ever read books like that? Like, and it's badly damaged here. I'm like, okay, come on, man. So anyway, returning to what I was saying, in this reality of war, this is the versus war. Okay, everybody is just like against everybody else, like however you can cut it. Even like it doesn't matter what you do. And this is like dealing with this. Like I've been dealing with this for 12, 14 years now. Everything that I do, 7 is doing the bad thing again. And it's like, really think about the ethics of something that can survive 12 years after a pandemic in this space and still be throwing life rafts, gyms, the whole nine. When we said we were going to build a bridge, and I told this to my brother Willie today, when we said we were going to build a bridge from the fake matrix to sovereignty, don't you realize that half of that bridge will have to be connected to the fake matrix? Then I got people coming at me, telling me stuff I already know. I'm like, look, I taught you. What I'm talking about is I'm talking about a roadmap of escaping death. I'm not talking about fleeing. I'm not talking about going and living like a pauper and imagining that's the lifestyle for me because I've been sold a lie that the more that I suffer in the physical plane, that the better my afterlife will be. When this is a continuum, how you're living now is how you're going to be living. And when you enter into that next space, you may still be over there looking for the next space and the next space and not realize that you're chasing your tail. You're chasing your stories. When you go to sleep at night, and this is all of us, you don't need spiritual powers for this. You see these dreams and you be in this dream casted as another character that you seem to recognize. You ever have folks be in a dream with you? Look at this. It happens to everybody. People you don't really know, but in a dream you know them. Yo, help, yo, come get me. Yo. And y'all looking at each other. Y'all know each other, but you don't know them, right? What's going on? Nobody wants to answer these questions, right? It's too much stimulus going on. So what I got an opportunity to do after the wake up 14 years ago was exit the matrix. That's why I came to Costa Rica where there's less of everything. And just dialed in to the nature of the thing. Not just the green and the trees, but what's going on with the greens and the trees inside, the nervous system, the lungs, the whole nine. And I accumulated knowledge and built knowledge based on facts. Not mere conjecture, not dualism. I also wanted to invite anyone that wanted to keep taking these steps further to ambassador training, because what we did was we put an entire curriculum together around this so it doesn't feel like you're just jumping in midstream. Because if you're just jumping in midstream, then it's entertainment. And yeah, you may come off this phone feeling geeked up like you didn't watch Wakanda or something. But I'm telling you, in a few hours, it's going to wear off. And you're going to be back in the same reality if you weren't able to take anything that I was able to say and begin to apply it into your life to where it brings forth fruits. Because that's another thing, that we have this thing where it's like a code. I don't even know what installed it. But it's like a trigger that the moment you be getting close to success, it's like even the last steps, you have a trouble finishing. I'm not even talking about minion stuff that's happening. I'm talking about just you personally. It's like, yo, you only have 10 more pages on the book. When are you just going to finish the book? And you'll start noticing that if you're monitoring yourself, that it seems like there's certain things that are hardwired to prevent you from reaching a certain level of success. So these are the observations that I was making. And I just had the opportunity to be away from all of the static long enough to where things started connecting. And so for us, when things started connecting, I wrote the code to the Matrix. And it's like, if you ever want to make fun of me, go read the code of the Matrix. Some people just be trying to find something wrong. Go read the code of the Matrix. You'll find a bunch of stuff there. Because I was like, I had just got all my chakras blown open. I was a 180 mile an hour vehicle that just went 600 miles per hour, and trying to write it all down and explain that in a furious kind of way, that there's something going on in the words. There's a code in the words. And that's where I want to begin today, because it's actually still continuously about cracking these codes, like your DNA code. And understanding what is all this anyway? So you telling me there's a string of information that constitutes my data, or who I think that I even am sometimes in life? And that the connection of all of those strings has a centralized system called the astral plane, where all of the data, what they call an Akashic records, where all of the data of everybody. But I'm telling you, you don't even got to be spiritual to see that. There's systems that were already laid in place that from 1 to 9 tell you every single thing about a person born with specific numerical equivalencies. So not philosophy, but numbers, which is called math or ma'at, the highest truth. So it's like matrices are designed with real codes and real principles. That's the only way that they can actually remain. Replicas, that was where I began with this. Replicas are ways in which to begin to understand the process of really contemplating the true algorithm of life and existence. The body is just the process of beginning to understand what the soul is really about as a collective, etc. And then the soul, and it will keep going because it never ends. And that's the kind of energy we're talking about. So when I set out, or in at that state, to figure out how to overcome death, I found it. There was an objective of how to become a superhuman. That was the running context of the word being used, superhuman. You can see things that others can't see that are real. You can go prolonged periods with no food. Your consciousness is so refined, you're super empathic. You're hearing birds flap their wings 3,000 miles away. You know, the ideas of superhuman got fanciful, of course, in the conscious community. But I was like so serious because I had already gone through an experience that was totally different. And I'm a very logical person. That's another thing. I come from a computer background. So everything was logic. If it didn't make sense, then I didn't want to believe in it. I needed to know about it. It just so happens that my experiences within the astral plane, omniscient planes, fourth dimension, you name it, the dream plane, astral plane, whatever, which is all one congealed space in my consciousness. I was able to prove not only more to myself that that was going on than that it wasn't going on. Now, of course, I'm at a point where I'm in what they call the land of no return. What that means, I could never go back to a fake world. I've already seen something that I can't unsee. So every day I operate inside of this matrix. in order to assist beings on multiple levels. I don't care what your color is. I don't care what your story is, what constellations you're from. I don't care about any of that. Here, there's only one energy that will really prevail on these planes. And I'm telling you, it's love. And love as a word is a torus. If you know linguistics, you know love makes a symbol of a torus. And when you understand that principle, when it says know yourself, that's what it's trying to teach. It's trying to teach you how to love yourself, how to actually, no matter what you find out about you, your ancestors or whatever, that you're able to accept that and allow that to empower you. Because anything begins with the mistake first. And especially in physical planes, because there's a calibration process that has to happen. But what we also have to be is we have to be adept enough, courageous enough to pick up where mistakes were made and to actually correct them once we understand truly how to. We have to be available for applying the salve, if you may, or the solution onto the reality, because it gave us this opportunity. It was a gift. So even if you don't like it no more, you can't stand it, but you're still eating in it, you laugh in it, you get your pleasures from it, you still have this obligation. And that to me is the obligation that we have to our mothers. And in tune, if you ask our mothers, what do they want us to do? They'll say, take care of my children, help my children. That'll be the first instinct from the mother. So that's how this began. So it won't never end. And this is a continuous projection of that, what I'm going to share today. So as I said, my goal was to activate this superhuman, and I figured out that there was this secret in words, that the words were telling us something, truly. And the more I began to look at words, I began to understand how it controls the direction of your brain. It's actually the very program that you're thinking in. And once you really understood the words, that a wheel would start turning in your mind, and this would actually turn on the thing that begins to introduce you to yourself. You become dislodged. Sometimes they call that blocked chakras, chained down unicorn. You become dislodged from mainly, primarily your root chakra as a gear becomes dislodged like a clock, and it starts to move the other ones a little bit. And this is called awareness. So when we saw the vehicle like that, we realized that, hey, it's these chakra things. Now, mind you, I had the experience, but I could not define the experience for you at that stage 13 years ago. I did the best in the Code of the Matrix. I knew nothing about chakras. I knew nothing about any of that. All I knew about was theism and dogmas, because that was my upbringing. Islam, Christianity, these kind of sects. But one of the things that I was really interested in, though, was this prophet guy. Not the pastor, the prophet guy. The guy who seemed to know the future and could predict the future. These Elijahs, these Enochs, these guys. And because of the household that I was raised in, these were like my X-Men, my superheroes. So later on in life, as I started dialing things in, I realized that, man, this has been going on for my whole life. Probably didn't start even here, this level of consistently climbing this mountain to become aware of what is on the top. What's controlling all of this? The greatest thing that I could have done this life was, instead of starting that quest externally, I started walking inside up the mountain of myself. And that's why we called it inner stand. That's where all that came from. It's like, so if you can stand inside, then you can prevent from falling into all of the illusionary stuff that's going on. Because when the glass was broken, I was able to see the real reality as it was. I decided to go back 100+ times. Meaning that I was able to level out, get to Costa Rica, and then realize from other people that were teaching me and other elders that I was bumping into synchronistically that this opening the third eye thing and this other dimension thing wasn't new. It wasn't something just trending on YouTube, that there were masters already. But there was even more there to be concerned about. And that was why so many people were just barred from knowing about it at all. It was better off they didn't know than to know and to think it's a game or a joke or to turn away from it. There were times that I felt like personally that I couldn't go on anymore trying to figure out about what's going to happen to me after I die. Then realizing that it wasn't up to me to determine if I was going to figure it out or not anymore. It was pulling me in, meaning that everybody is going to it. And it was just sending me transmissions like, yo, this is what's going to happen. This is what you need to do. It happens to everybody. I don't know where's your consciousness at? You're not even worried about the big stuff. Let me put you in on the big things so you can start realizing what's going on with yourself. Let's get into you now. Instead of all these different things that you're sending your energy to, including your girlfriend, that business, all that stuff, man, you're done. Like, think about who's really, when I die, your eyes don't close. When your eyes close, my eyes don't close. So the reality is that you still have this responsibility for yourself. And so that's where the energy I was coming with and still coming with. So when we went into Creative Superhuman, the first time I went on a journey with the diamonds, see, first I started with the breath. Don't get it confused. We are sitting on and floating around and interacting with the very thing that can set us into an entirely different stage of consciousness. And anybody that has practiced real breathing, even just whole body breathing, et cetera, knows what I'm talking about. You can get into all types of stasis just right there on your bed. Just stick with it, like 1 week tops. I had something going on the first day. Then you kind of calm down a little bit because you're like, well, shit, it's free. The highest thing you can gain in life, still free. You can relax. Stop acting like everybody's trying to cage you in here. You're here for a reason. But if you want to leave, you just take a few breaths. And if you really know how to breathe, you'll be gone. So now that we clear that out, now you keep coming back. Why? See, that's how you be knowing common sense ain't common. How do you know that you're really supposed to be here? Because you keep fucking coming back. I mean, come on. Like, are you getting it? Hello? Something to do here. You go to sleep and you come back. Like, yo, when you don't come back here anymore, that means that there's nothing else to do. Until then, you got this process of trying to figure it out. And as I said, it gets into this kind of stuff. So the first time I went on the journey, of course, it was like, so I had learned the breathing thing, and we call that the front door. You know, I just have to recap on a couple things here so it's clear even for the newcomers. We called it the front door. This meant that you naturally left the body. Breathing does it. And the interesting thing is when you do it through the front door, it's like you come into your consciousness and almost like kick in the front door, and all these other beings are kind of living there. It's kind of like the Men in Black room with all the little creatures and stuff, and they're like, ah! And you're like, yo, what the hell is going on? You on my throne. Get off my throne. You know what I mean? You cleared things out. That's the front door. Versus the back door, you know, and I'm not saying which one's better or worse, but the back door, I call that the businessman's version. This means that you need to get into the astral plane like ASAP, and you don't have the necessity of going through the front door. I'll say it this way. This means you're trying to rip the actual GUI or skin off the reality so you can see what's really going on. By activating the third eye right away, like why your consciousness is still in the day side of itself. Okay, because what meditation does is it puts you in the now or the night side of oneself. And then you open the third eye, and this is like you're opening the third eye, but you're opening it up in a vast realm of darkness. Okay, because the third eye is so sensitive that it can see through the darkness, and we're calling that space. But everything is turned off. All the lights are really turned down in order to allow the complete opening. Versus the back door, the businessman's version, it's like the equivalent of standing in front of the sun and trying to see something. That's kind of the difference. One is kind of a gradual process where you can really dial in, and the other one's like you're just there. You're going to be right in the middle of seeing everything. Now you need to have faculties trained to be able to distinguish things from that level of power. Because all your receptors or your solar panels, if you may, are wide open, and then you didn't turned on the third eye right in the front of the sun. So everything you're going to see is just going to be like everything, right? And you got to distinguish what's going on there. So needless to say, when I first went to that stage, I definitely could not say I was distinguishing anything of what was going on. I was terrified. And when it was over, as I lay back, what I noticed is that there was a code There was a code running through everything. Even the two guys that were sitting next to me, they had like this code that was running up their arm. And even though I'm flying by the seat of my pants, I just remind myself, yo, there's a code there, and we need to crack that code or write that code down or something and translate it back into this dimension because it's there. You can see it. And I asked him, hey, you see that? He said, yeah, you see it. So at the end of the day, which was 100 DMT journeys for me to not only extract the code, but also just to get comfortable with being in a space so serious. So serious. It's like you in there with great granddad and grandma. And then when you say something, boy, you better shut up. Be like, but grandma, boy, don't you talk in here. This is what it be like. It's just so spooky. like, yeah, this is a little different, right? But that's the ride up. Like, the ride up, though, it's got other things going on. And then also I realized that it's also what's going on in your environment. I've had it's after 100 experience, because what we did was we went clinical with it. That's what spirit tech is. It's spiritual technology. Let's investigate. You got 100 journeys. There's diaries. There's elements. There's different variations. What were those 100 journeys? They were seeing what things really are. If this is supposed to be something that's crystal, let's open the third eye and see. But more importantly, feel. Because that's another thing about all this. Because we could talk about seeing a lot, but in this realm, seeing is feeling, right? So feeling it. So, all that, then you back again, then you grab the crystal, and then you see the crystal, the energy just going up to him, like, yeah, this is definitely something, I don't know what it is, but That was number 47. Journey 47. What happened? Yo, crystal is alien, clearly something else. I think we need to tone it down a little bit, turn down the frequencies, blah, blah, blah. So this was the journeys, right? So then there was a point, though, I will tell you that, because this is 14 years now, that, I was going on these fantastic journeys and I was actually exploring higher levels of consciousness. I realized that still there was the needs from the community. And since we had already started these platforms, I started not only delivering the information, I think at every single show I was doing this, just explaining the whole thing from start to finish. There's 700 shows. Like, I don't know too many people who can say that. And most of them have real gems that are different than the previous show. But you can see the cumulative effect. You can see how we're pretty much saying the same thing we were saying then as we're saying now, but the ornate detail, I guess I'll use that word today, the hyper ornate detail is on a whole nother level where we're drilling into the very fabrics of reality of who we truly are. And we've come to discover viruses in the system, interoperators in the systems. We've discovered things in the system also that wasn't all like, hey, we're having a great time here. We saw people chained in the system. We saw the real Mr. Smiths, the Will Smith, meaning I will Smith, I will build, I will create and fabricate even illusions. We saw that there was organized structures inside of these spaces that consciousnesses that were so vast had already set up, like ant colonies, like what ants really are. So there was more, and this was the exploration itself, because remember, see, about 3 generations ago, let's say great-great-great-great-grandfather, they were all explorers. They weren't just trying to go to the mall. They weren't trying to just get them new J's. They was like really on, because here's why. When you go out on that ocean, what do you think you're going for? See, nowadays they're going to get some Instagram pictures. They ain't going to make it to the open ocean, though. When you go into the open ocean, which is synonymous with what they call space, what are you really going out there for? There's only a few things you can find out there. Your death, because the water is, you need to know what you're doing on the open ocean. Resources. Another group. Do you know that same thing about like how people will arrive on the shore of another land and they would have never seen them before? And that would be like an alien invasion. That is just an explanation of what it's like to jump on a boat and to finally have a boat or a ship that is seaworthy enough to get all the way to the other side and to show up on some folks that never even knew you were there. That's where that whole idea of things coming from space, from another planet, if you may, and then coming over to our planet, and then we never even knew they were there. So I'm just saying that there's more going on, and what we were into was figuring out what that more was, and that took exploration. So all of these original societies, not the ones that we're seeing now, these societies were united in that exploration because it meant that we were all going out and discovering more about ourselves and collecting the human family, if you may. But as I said, now we're at war. See, so how they explain this to you metaphysically is the war of the gods. So before the war of the gods, there was everyone connected and doing big things. After the war of the gods, we have racial problems now. That's what racism is. It's the war of the gods manifested, mainly the war of the sexes. First the sexes, divine feminine, divine masculine, then the gods. And they're 360, now 365 level pantheism. Now, what does that mean? That's 365 replicas of one form that now, instead of learning about all that one form and getting that whole download at one time, it's chopped into 365 pieces called gods that you now need to understand in order to understand the aspects of yourself, right? So this was what the quest and the journeys were of our ancestors. This was what the play to earn, which if you talk about on the blockchain, play to earn was really about. You got into the game or life or the game of life. You chose your character and then you played it to the bone. See, what's wrong with people now is that they're so busy trying to be something else. I've had to consistently get this out of my bloodline, out of my system. I can only be me. And what I mean by we're trying to be somebody else, meaning that we actually care. Even if you're doing all the work on yourself and you're on point, we still care what other people are saying about us, even though they're not even awake. This is now at a stage which you'll see very clearly is like a lot of people are virtually zombies. It's a real thing. They actually finally brought all that shit from the movies into real life. But here's the thing. Sometimes zombies seem harmless until they're chewing on your arm. And that's just a word to the wise to everyone here is that ignorance, for a while, it seems harmless until it's costing us our lives. Remaining dead and in debt, it can seem like a daily thing until you die. And you realize that there's an entirely other system set up to try to get that back from you. So what we design here in this space, and I'm hoping there's as many of these in the world as possible, but we design the path to get from wherever you're at, as I always say, to this stage of balance, starting right here with yourself. So I'm going to show some stuff of what things eventually led to after the journeys as far as what needs to happen with the body. Because the body, like how you feel right now, if you're sick, you wouldn't probably even turn this on. When you get really sick, you don't want to hear anything about spirituality. You're trying to get better. So some of us are here, we're able-bodied, but I also speak to those I speak to those that are sick, but I also speak to those that are also done with the healing phase of their consciousness too. Like, sometimes it feels like we're on these training wheels and it's like, oh, I'm always healing. Oh, the old wretch human. Man, forget all of that. You did that enough. Now it's time. Like I said, this is the hero heroine the Heru, whatever you want to call it, this is the time where, as I said, as I said to my brother, look, they write stories about us in the future. It's time for that life now, that existence, that connection with yourself. And even today, as I stand, if I wasn't here anymore, I already said everything that I needed to say. There's no, like when people say, well, so what is coming on there? There's always something next. But as far as the core level of knowledge and awareness, it's already there. You can dive in on YouTube. There's no paywall. It's free. You don't got to come in and ambassador train. Ambassador train is to support. Those are ambassadors. Those are the first beings that from the pipeline know what's going on and are actually implementing the tools to actually change things for others in the space that they're in. There's 300 of them. But there's no wall here. Like if you see something I'm doing, you don't like what I'm doing. He's with AI now. He's messing with AI. AI is a part of the problem. So is the bank. So is cryptocurrency. So is the food supply. So is that shirt you got on made from oil. So what you need is a plan then, right? Because either you're going to stay in that. Oh, it was my fault. It's my fault. I can't do nothing. Or you're going to realize, as it says, that everything is an opportunity. There are no enemies. There's only opportunities. But the opportunities that you choose will affect your future. So have a plan. The vision here is, I give it 3 years. 3 years before there's a strong bridge built that could take anyone from the matrix to total sovereignty. That's what I'm going at. And everything is at my disposal. AI, Saturn, Venus, reptiles, cheesecake, whatever. Because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take everything when you realize what we truly are and what we have to grow through. So every day that stuff like this and awareness is not implemented, there's not a vast system of learning and self-awareness implemented into our society that if someone says, I want to know myself. Remember, see, this is not a save the world thing. Everybody that comes into the awareness is one world. So if you want to save a world, just hook up with one person and really make a change in their life. What this is that one thing that did happen that I didn't like at all. When I went into the level of awareness that I went into, is I couldn't really find anybody to help me and explain to me what I had experienced at all. I told you I wrote the Kundalini Society of America. They didn't write me back and mistakenly sent me an internal email where the guy was explaining, basically this guy, he's gone through the experience. What should we do now? So they don't know what to do with you when you activate Kundalini. And I see why, because when a lot of people activate Kundalini, since it's trending now and they go drink up all these medicines, they don't have a foundation. So they blast off and it seems like they never land. And I cry for them. I mean, it's like I be trying to find solutions to bring crazy people back. You see what I mean? So it gets deeper. It's like you start seeing in the field, like my peers, the people who also were teaching at the time I taught, and kind of like some of the choices that they've had to make down the road because nobody was there to support them. But realizing also, hey, if I need the tools, I need the empowerment to support you. I'm already coming to the table with the greatest thing, energy, soul, being a human. Now it's up to you. It's up to your society. It's up to your systems to be able to do something with that. And then what we've let is another system come in. It just exploits the whole thing. It has the structure because it stole the structures from the oracles. And so it has the structure of how to reach into every single part of the reality and to give it stimulus. But instead, it pulls the energy using that same source. So it's like imagine something being connected to all your dreams. But instead of projecting you dreams that got you getting up in the morning just charged up, I don't know if everybody had a good dream anymore. Sometimes I come out of a dream, I'm like, man, I be activating in a dream. Like the thing is like, that's when I realized, because I used to have this thing when I was on the planet for a while. It's like, shit, the activation. I need to go activate. Let me go and do this and do this and do this. Let me eat all this and eat all that. All these mushrooms and the psilocybins and myceliums and all this kind of stuff. And, let me go on this diet. Let me go on this. And I'm sure my other self was just looking at me like, look, man, if we want you to activate, watch this. I go to sleep. Boom. Right? And then that night, you ate some Doritos or something. It's like, okay, how? I got depressed that night. I finally killed my kale diet and went and ate some Doritos, and somehow I went to the Arabot. What are the rules to this? There are no rules. What it is about every single moment maintaining the balance within the system, being able to come back in on yourself, reboot into reality, be empathic, see bad things happening. But as I said, be the medic on the zone. Like, yo, we get you taken care of. Like, don't worry. We developing something, get that leg back working again. But for now, let's just stop the bleeding. But again, where most are at is because they're locked in a state of mind of good or evil is they're just trying to figure out what you're doing wrong so they can judge you. So they can feel like a god for a moment. This is just that part of, if you've been being a kid in the reality and the reality and treating you like a kid, not like a child, but childish. When you have surrogate parents that don't even act like that, they care about you. And then you grow up like that. Now you get a little fame from something. I don't know, maybe putting your booty out or something. I don't know. Get a little fame from something. And then now you want to leverage on everybody else how you are so much more special than them. To ease that pain of the rejection that you have been through. And this is like spinning into reality. That's why there's so much war and so much versus. When we all should know everybody's children are at stake here. We keep this up. Everybody's children, black, white, brown, yellow, green, purple. I don't care what planet you're from. You keep this up. You don't get it together. You don't harmonize it. There's some interoperators, and boy, they seem to have an infinite exploration of actually getting inside of people's DNA and getting them on a chain, an old slave chain. So that same energy that I said, see, there's nothing wrong with ropes and chains and all that stuff. We use that on boats. But if it's around your neck, that's not the place to put it. So we have to be able to take the structure, refine it. In this whole disclosure that is going to consistently happen from this space, it's starting tonight. Oh, shoot, it's Friday already. In that explosive exposure is just exactly how the system is put together and who put it together in the first place and what do we do to actually get out of it legally. But it's wild. It's wild to see that maybe who you're calling your people were the ones that put it together. Now how are you going to swallow that pill? Meaning that if you know the truth to all of this, which is math, you understand that everybody here has had a part in the development of all of consciousness. So that means that we all also had that responsibility to put things in balance or not. So that's what I'm here for. So I just wanted to make that very clear today, is that's what I'm here for. Also, lastly, stop being so damn selfish. We be thinking when we develop something, we be developing so that we benefited from it this life. That's how we act. We're so short-sighted. Like, if I discover regeneration, it's for me. So I can bring myself back. Or if we end up cleaning up the financial system, we finally make it to decentralization, where there's real councils and real communities and restore that. I got to see it that in my life. You got to be that old Gandalf-looking dude or Morgan Freeman-looking dude sitting on the throne over there. Oh, everybody, I was the first one to. So selfish. What this is about is, because if you roll with that selfishness, what's going to happen is when you realize, and this is for everybody, that your ancestors was in part with the same thing that's causing the very demise of the planet right now, you just crumble under that. you won't realize that who cares about what's going to happen to you? Who cares about what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to our children? And I will tell you, though, from my own meanderings on the astral plane, that if you can get your children into alignment, even what you may have failed in, what you did not rectify, the space that you're going to, you'll still be able to, at minimum, see how they benefit from their sovereignty that you give them. And at maximum, you may actually even be able to become them because the DNA is still woven that way. But we can't talk about any of that right now. This is a very serious conversation today, just this one segment. I'm not in this for myself. I'm good. What I'm concerned about is what's going to happen to our children. So anything that I need to do, wherever I need to be, whatever I need to be involved in, whatever I need to know, whatever I need to get an awareness on, whatever I need to talk about, all of that, if it's going to better the children, I'm in. That's how my mission personally started. So I just wanted to explain that to everybody that, listen, you're talking to me about when the whole cryptocurrency thing started, people were at me about it then. Oh, man, crypto's the devil. These are the same people that they basically left the church and came to the conscious community. And they're trying to find the devil again. I seen the enemy. He is me. That's what they explain. I even think Hitler said it. I seen the superhuman because basically with all them drugs he was on, he basically became a superhuman. He said he's cruel and intrepid. That was how he was. So people are telling you they're reaching certain stages and they're giving you insights on themselves. This is when they say know yourself, you can know yourself by looking at others, but you have to be empathic and you have to also be compassionate. If I'm going to look at the bleeding person and me, well, he's dead. It's like, oh, wait, he's dead. But see, now look at the reality, though. This is kind of how stuff is. They just ran a video about they was in there in the place when some people had the monkey, and the people in the hospital was like, I'm not touching him. So that's Hippocratic. You're violating the Hippocratic oath. So what I'm saying is that we need new tools. We can't be coming in with sandals and rods that don't work. You got the old stick. It don't got no crystal in it. It ain't been laid in the water and sacred. Ain't blessed. Ain't doing nothing. You just walking around on the. This ain't the time for that. And that's why I said this build is about those who know. Look, I'm the one that they write the stories about. I'm never making it on the list most of the time of who everybody prefers. They still try to wonder if I'm pro-black, if I'm pro-white, if I'm pro-alien, if I'm pro-something. And I keep explaining to them over and over again, look, this is what everything looks like as a replica. This thing right here is only the beginning. My 100th something trip when I decided it was time to be off the journeys. I haven't been on a journey in maybe a year now, 2 years. I died for the final time, the real death. I don't know what happened. It was like something with my configuration. It was way too much of the stimulant or catalyst inside of the valves. I also had these rods that have been created to return the energy back into the body. So you would activate, and instead of the energy just going out, it would come back into the body and create this feedback loop. And then we had a room that did that, which is a room. This room was easy to configure. It wasn't something like, oh man, it's a secret, it's a mystery. No, in acoustics, they know how to do this too. Most people who have a cellar below their house, it happens in the room that the cellar is above. So we had this room in a feedback loop. Well, on this final journey, I must have melted. Like I stayed in the astral plane for like 15 minutes on high vibration. It got to a point where I had to realize in my mind that maybe I'm just going to be like this for the rest of my life, and I need to be prepared for seeing this all the time. And it was that point where I realized that when you die, you talk to yourself. It was fascinating realization. I knew I died. It was too much. But then I found myself asking myself what happened. Like, what happened? Like, I don't know. Why are you asking me? Who are you? I'm you. It was a weird conversation. I'm just saying. And I thought we died. We did. So how are you talking to me? It's like, well, I guess the body is not who we really are. Exactly. And then I woke up. I was back in the world again. I was like, okay, so we got this established. That's it. I was like, okay, we done. We're not the body, but I'm definitely not going back in anymore. I'm good. I got enough from here. And that's, this is, how it was working, right? So needless to say, so let's go ahead and switch over to cameras real quick. I'm going to show a couple things. All right. I guess we'll start there. Then we'll turn this one off too, because it seemed like it was causing some issues. Okay, so by a sign of thumbs up, Sean, am I here? Can you hear me again over there? Sean? Okay, you must not be able to hear me. Okay, Sean, by a sign of thumbs up, can you hear me? Okay, 1 second. I'm trying to remember when Sean was hearing us. Was it because we were speaking through the other mic? We should live. Okay, everyone. Sean, can you hear me? Okay, so I think how this is working is it's working on, like they would be able to hear me on, maybe it's this. Oh, 1 second. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Let me turn this off. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Oh, this is not on. Oh, no, wait, no, it is on, it is on, okay. Okay, let me go ahead and unmute that. Okay, Sean, can you hear me now? Okay, it looks like we are having a little issue with the mic, so let me figure out a quick solution here with the other mic. I thought we got it working, though. Let's come in tight real quick for some. There we go. Okay, Sean, can you hear me now? Okay, nice. All right. Okay, so we're going to start off with camera 4. Yeah. Okay. All right, so we're good. All right, so Sean, if you could do me one more time, just a thumbs up that everything is coming through clear. If you can look over at Sean on that screen. Sean got a thumbs up over there? Should it be more louder? He say thumbs down? Not good?
I can hear you on Zoom, but not on YouTube.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, what about now on YouTube? All right, that's what's up. That's what's up. All right, everyone. Yeah, the whole microphone thing is always interesting, but we are forward again. All right, so now what I'm going to do here, so as you know, we are doing this launch. And in this launch, we also have the vector equilibriums also being given away. Okay, and so I'm going to explain a little bit about Spirit Tech and our process with our technology and where we're at now. And then that's going to bring some clarity to everything. So let me just kind of collect myself over here. Hold on. Yes. Let me get a little bit of water over here. I guess there's no other projects like this on the blockchain, right? It's like, okay, what is this? I'm sure there's somebody that just came in that just kind of followed one of those cryptocurrency links or whatever. He's just like, what did I just walk into? This probably would work. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about spirit tech. So what was going on is that as I was going through these experiences, there were certain things that were clearly enhancing the experience. As I mentioned before, the goal is to actually find out what certain elements do. And really, I just started going right at the periodic table. And it's interesting that we still went completely through the whole periodic table, and we did that in monatomics. Actually, you know what? We can pull this out too, because it is a big part of, the early part of spirit techs and what we were able to accomplish. Let me see. Do you have that alchemical football? Let's see. Where is that at? You see, oh, there it is. Okay. Let me just go in here real quick. So we'll grab this real quick. So what we did was, okay, let's open over there. So what we did is we stabilized about 30 elements from the periodic table in monatomic form. We're good? Okay, all right. So we stabilize about 40 elements from the periodic table in monatomic form. And what that is that obviously even elements such as gold are actually poisonous, if you may, just to eat gold directly, right? However, it can be taken and put into a form that you can actually ingest it. So it was discovered also that you can do that with many of the elements on the periodic table if you had the type of equipment, which is basically like a mini collider. It just slams particles together until it pulls off one of the atoms, and then it's there with the single atom. And we had partnered with a group that actually was pioneering it. And even though they didn't continue because there just wasn't enough revenue in it for them to have to continue to stabilize these elements and then try to provide these elements, they did pass the equipment along to me because they later on went into agriculture, and they ended up developing what is called in their realm agrotomics, which was making plants not only grow faster but actually be very dense in their mineral content. And this was like 12 silicates and 22 phytoactive M-state elements, right? So we went into this, right? And I'm just going to keep it real clear with everybody about these ventures is sometimes you think it's a really good idea, and what you find is it's a bit early because, people were not really understanding the power of pure monatomics. And then there was a lot of bad monatomics on the internet, and still remains a lot of bad monatomics on the internet. And they do damage to the energetic center. But the equipment that we were utilizing and the process in which we were using in order to create these elements was on the highest level, and it produced today, these are the only elements left that are stabilized. And I was going on journeys, mainly not with DMT. You didn't need to add anything else. But I was going personally on clinical trials with elements. And I end up going through 3 of them. I stopped at ruthenium before I realized personally that I needed to commit myself to this as like a life thing. That I needed to even pull away from society, because ruthenium was what really let me understand that. Because what it kept doing was it brought in front of you consistently the thing that what I would say is the nemesis of your existence, like the thing that keeps messing it up for you every time. And it showed you that was the same thing disguised as different things going on in your life. And it brought you into such a clarity on what that thing actually was that was going wrong with everything. Then you got the ability to remove that. And it was almost like you were removing your problems. But before you caught on that that was actually what was going on, it was pretty traumatic kind of experience. And that's why I realized, obviously I went with gold first, then even in copper, silver, and then finally into some of the other elements such as iridium, osmium, etc. And then the three that I'm talking about were when you just got into stuff that had no testing on it yet, right? So I decided that maybe I'd back off for a minute. So that was actually one of the first products that Spirit Tech Labs, if you may, produced. Then, through the process, I started noticing that there was for sure a universal language, sound, shape, color, etc. And that this universal language was able to be not just extracted, but actually learned. That, it's like, how do you learn a universal language? And so we started developing things like the cymatic software, where it was the first software, period, that you can actualize the number of a frequency. So you type in 528 hertz, you hit enter, and it would give you the pattern. But you could go through the whole frequency spectrum, and some of the patterns were very interesting. Some of the patterns even moved on when they were printed. So you print the sheet of paper, and then you would look at it, and the pattern would be moving. But of course, everything is static. So there was a lot in that, and I learned that. This starts to get in. I learned personally that not only cymatics, but then metamaterials was the next new frontier, and that there was a whole set of knowledge that you would only have if you learned about antennas. Like if your job is to configure a 5G pole or telephone line, then you need to know how to transmit and receive frequencies. And how you transmit and receive frequencies is based on specific patterns that cover that bandwidth. And so there would be high bandwidth patterns. And so I started researching this deep and started mapping frequencies like solfeggio, et cetera, to their patterns, and then creating metamaterial arrays, right? So this is once again the bright idea, like, yo, we're ready. Because at this level, because you start saying, so what can we do with this? You could program water because you were right at the scale that water molecules are on. And so it was a perfect carrier for water programming. So I decided, we're going to develop the world's first water programmer. And here it is. And this was a big lesson for me. It was the first time that I actually went into creating a consumer electronic, if you may, that was supposed to be in homes everywhere. And the way I designed it was, well, in assistance also with our brother Lars, who is now in a greater space and actually watching this right now, sending all the love and vibration to our brother Lars. But he was able to CAD this out for me off of mathematical equations that were put together, which basically show how an egg is also the most ideal shape to begin to program liquids, which is why, of course, the egg is shaped like an egg. And there was also cymatic array. There's also a gecko in there. You probably won't be able to see that, but there's a gecko hanging out in there. He's feeling the vibes. But this cymatic array was built into the unit along with crystals, and that's what's inside the units, crystals that match the geometric pattern, because there's 7 crystal symmetries that match the symmetry of the metamaterial that was wrapped around. I know it kind of sounds crazy. Even to me, I'm like, I don't want to make this sound really complex, but it is. But this was the level that we went with this. And it's unfortunate that, because this was not a Kickstarter project. I wanted to see if I could do this. I didn't take anybody's money. I just went in. And what I found out was why they make things ugly in the kitchen. Like why everything looks like a square or looks very weird. And that's because, or it looks very blocky and industrial. And this is because it's easy to mass produce. Also, it's more impervious to receiving damage, right? So I basically didn't think about like the size of Fiaqua, and that people may want something like this in their backpack versus inside of their kitchen. and we were not able to bring it to production because the cost became forbidding. When they basically explained to me how much it was going to cost for me to mass produce these, it didn't make it crashed the project, right? So it obviously was something that I was very disheartened about for a while. So I still came back in though, and I decided that I'd give it another run by trying to create it myself, like meaning to do the actual manufacturing here in the studio. And needless to say, while we ended up cracking into another variant of this same technology, which is sound, shape, color, in order to program water, that was in a whole different format, I was able to acquire the level of equipment to be able to produce this. And once I got at that level, so that's not only just buying equipment also. Now, like in certain respect, again, I come from a technological background, but now I'm in the CAD, I'm in the drafting, I'm in the antenna research, so I'm crossing into other fields. And so this means I got to spend time in learning things and making mistakes, right? And so once I got done with the whole process of applications, I realized that I could do this in a different way, a much more refined way. And that's what the vector equilibrium actually is. So let me move this out of the way. So, but I want to talk about this in order though. So the vector equilibrium though, which is here, is something that's been like 4 years in the making. Like it definitely did not come overnight, because it was a lot of extra dialing in to simplify. I won't say that the vector equilibrium programs water, because that's not the only thing that it can do, and that's not its primary function, versus FIACWA's primary function is to program water. Versus the vector equilibrium is actually working with the energetic field in your space, and also amplifying the energetic field after it's balanced the energetic field and then returns it into the body. Okay, so, but in order, so I realized that I still wanted to jump into water. I wanted to really continue on with water. Water is life. And that's when I said we ended up going full circle. That's what I was explaining in the beginning, because we went through every single element almost on the periodic table, the ones that could be stabilized. But somehow when we went past one, which is hydrogen, I don't know what happened. I kind of it was weird. I just made my own judgment about what I thought about hydrogen. And I saw hydrogen as a fuel. Oxygen is also a fuel. So I don't know what my logic was. I saw hydrogen as a fuel. I knew a lot about HHO, because that was big in the conscious community for a while, and just, making less emissions from the cars, or actually utilizing different types of fuels, in this case, hydrogen. So I only thought about it like that, and that if you put something in your body like that it would explode. I don't know how I came to that logic. But anyway, years later, I came back around to an awareness of hydrogen research. And I wanted to share that link. If you give me a second, you can put it on that. I'm going to share a link here in the chat. And it's just that I came across, through a series of events, lots of information about that hydrogen was basically the element that teaches all other elements inside of your body how to be themselves. That's the easiest way to explain it. How to carry on their function, because many of these elements have forgotten what they're even supposed to do. So number one is like the OG. We always say roll with the winners. Hydrogen is something that you begin to administer into your body, and then it needs to take, because when your body gets hydrogen at first, it's like, what is this? And you'll see that you probably you're urinating more often for just a short moment, at least a week. And then all of a sudden, the benefits start kicking in, because as you'll see in the link that I shared, hopefully somebody can share that in YouTube too, maybe a moderator, but you'll see that there is so much world research from real agencies, real scientific labs on hydrogen. It's immense. Everything that you could think of that could be an issue has already been addressed and solved with prolonged exposure to hydrogen. Predominantly in this case in the form of water, because water can hold hydrogen long enough to put it in your system. So hydrogen also passes through glass, just so you can understand how small it is as a molecule. So in this case, the next goal was, since we knew that hydrogen, so another level of how I figured out about hydrogen was I went on a journey with a hydrogen tablet, and it 10x the journey. I mean, it was way too much, the energy from the journey. And I was like, whoa, what happened? And all I can remember was that I had taken this hydrogen tablet. And so when I went on the journey again in the future and it happened again, I realized that hydrogen, it puts fuel into the blood, because what you'll realize is what journeyers are, and that's why a lot of times you're tired after a journey, is a journey is just basically flooring the Donzi. It's going to spin up everything in all the chakras and use up all of the energy and the fuel. It's like, oh, let's put all that to the main engine now, shut down everything else and put it all to the third eye. So that's kind of what it's doing. And so you need to, for sure, have the kind of body that is capable of doing that. People keep going on journeys a long time. They wear their body down, and then their soul starts becoming detached, all sorts of weird stuff. So this is why in our ancestors, and even in Ayurveda, the body is insulated with curries, and different curries to help you carry current. So there's insulated with these different ancient elements that give you the ability to have a large amount of voltage, if you may, running through your body, your consciousness, etc., and without you coming unhinged, okay? And so hydrogen in itself is a fuel and for the body. So it's one of the only fuels that is directly adaptable to the body, right? So what happened was we started to research this hydrogen, and I found flaws in the tablet version. And then, of course, found out that the water version was the main way to get it in the body. But then there was another issue, right? So there's always a little hurdle to climb. And that other issue but there wasn't any hydrogen devices that can produce the level of hydrogen that they are testing with inside of the laboratories, right? Because there's a specific machine they're using. That machine is 20 grand, and it can get the hydrogen levels up to 3,000 parts per billion. Now, you could go on the internet right now, go to Amazon, and you'll see, or if you buy the device, even if it's saying that it produces a lot of hydrogen, and test that most hydrogen devices can't get over 1,500 ppb, right? So the first thing that I did was I found somebody that could do that. And we went into this partnership together, and we started pioneering Hydrolux. And that was it right here. This is the Hydrolux version 1. It produced 3,000 ppb plus. So that was our first entry into finally having something that was delivered, right? Because we didn't get a chance to go all the way with this. When this came, it was on point. We also opened up a flagship. I'll open it up as a flagship item inside of our affiliate program, meaning that everybody got higher commissions if they were able to push Hydroluxes, because that was the goal, to create also more things for this internal economy that we have inside of our own tribe. Now, as you can see here, we have a new variant of the Hydrolux. And we're still in that process of thinking about whether we're going to release this or not, or, what are we going to do? I think we are, because now we have been able to gain 3,000 more ppb, meaning that now the unit produces 6,000 parts per billion inside of this. And the reason why we're able to accomplish that is because the cap on this is it's capable of keeping the hydrogen contents under pressure. And so you're going to hear it here in a moment. Let me stand this up. So I'm just going to open this so you can hear just the pressure. Oh my goodness. So what that means is remember that what hydrogen has to do is hydrogen has to be forced into water. Because hydrogen wants to just go to the top part of the atmosphere. That's why we always say roll with the winners. It just wants to go high. So because of your containment unit, though, when you drink it, it will go and become digested by your system and then actually become a fuel source for the body. So that's it for hydrogen. I'm not going to Hydrogen's big. You can check out the articles. You can see where the articles are linked to, and you can check out all of the .gov sites that have already done their research on this and the potential of what it's capable of doing. So then we move finally into the vector equilibrium. So now I was like, okay, so we need to get this technology into the palm of the hand. That's the age that we're living in now. And so I started on this project of visualizing what that would be and doing, all the computations that are necessary, dialing into the geometry, the elements, the formation. And in the end, which is but the beginning, the vector equilibrium was developed. Now, I know that this may be tough to be seen, so I'm just going to put it here on the counter, and maybe Destin will be able to zoom into it. But what the vector equilibrium is it's first of all, from the composition of the material in itself is conductive. The actual poles that you see here are these what you see as gold magnets. They are configured in a pattern that allows there to be a spiral taking place magnetically. And then inside of each array, there is an element or a noble element placed inside of the array. What does this do? So when you're holding this, so just holding it, and you're having a speech, or you're meditating, or you're doing really anything involved in energetics, what you begin to feel is you begin to feel that the energy from the elements that are embedded within this cuboctahedron are going into the hand that you're actually holding it in. Okay? So that's what this does, is it not only amplifies the energy field within the body, like basically allowing the blood to circulate better, but it also feeds the energy of the noble elements that are within the cuboctahedron into the hand. So this device also, it is, how can I put it? It is there's a need for it to be cleaned, right? So we talk about astral hygiene in this case. So because of the composites and things that it consists of, what it's doing is it's also kind of purifying the field. But then when it does that, it will accumulate what you would call like the negative part of the field. And that's why we kind of suggest that this is like a personal item, that this is not something that you kind of just give to your friend, like, yo, check it out. The cuboctahedron or vector equilibrium that you have is like basically uniquely identified to you as you start interacting with it. So it becomes familiar with your energetic field, and then it cleans consistently the energetic field, kind of like a air purifier. And so when you're not using the vector equilibrium, you then place it into the storage container, which is here. And when I place it into this storage container, what it's going to do is it's going to then begin to charge it. So you'll feel like when it snaps in place, it'll snap in place, as that one did. And then you'll see that, you'll see the position of where those triangles are, and then you snap it into place. And in that, as you can see, it's a magnetically contained field. And what it's doing now is then it's just wiping off and balance. Well, it's actually balancing, because there's no energy. Energy is interesting. It doesn't actually go anywhere. It's just how it's configured. So it reconfigures that energy, and then it puts it into alignment. Each cuboctahedron or vector equilibrium, overall it's called the vector equilibrium, have serial numbers because vector equilibriums are actually an array, and that's what this is on the top. And maybe we can zoom in a little bit on that. I'll hold it here for a minute. Maybe the black one will be better, but what you're looking at on the top is actually the bandwidth pattern as a metamaterial of the bandwidth spectrum that the cuboctahedron governs. So basically, the bandwidth spectrum is an entire spectrum, so it's full bandwidth to be able to deal with every situation that would take place in this reality and the realities adjacent to this reality. And so because of that, though, every cuboctahedron is actually unique. They cannot be by themselves per se. When you configure an array, you don't have just one unit. So this is like, when you have Wi-Fi, the moment you get to a certain distance, there needs to be another one. It needs to repeat that vibration or frequency in order for there to be a matching of communication. So right now, there are 30 or so cuboctahedrons that are in an array. So they were all configured together to support basically each other. And when we launch, then those 30 cuboctahedrons are, as we know, as their IRLs inside of our NFTs. And then also, depending on what happens, then they'll actually be on the site and available there. But we will also continue to register them because it is important, for the individual owners to know that that cuboctahedron, until you sell it, if you may, or get rid of it, is registered to you. So we know basically who has the cuboctahedron that is emitting that particular part of energy on their array. And then you have the registration, which is here. You receive this card, and the card will have the QR code that links to the registration of your cuboctahedron. So that way also in the future, because as we said, these are non-fungible in that respect, you have an IRL non-fungible that is registered to you. And if you wanted to do something with it, like liquidate it for whatever reason, maybe you go through an experience and you say, okay, I need to collect however much they end up becoming worth in the future, then it would be different than something else you generally purchase where it's like, okay, now I'm going to send it to eBay or whatever. It probably would have a higher value than it had when you initially acquired it. And there's a rarity here because we have to produce these from scratch here. So in conclusion, what I'm saying is that being able to go through this process of creating this gave me the ability to actually create this. And while this didn't actually make it yet to market, there is still plans on ultimately making this about the size of this, and then being able to bring the metamaterial array and things into a device that's this small. And that's also what I wanted to speak on in conclusion here, which is about, so you can see that we developed software already. Like we have our own social ecosystem. Right now, if you want to go check out Secret Energy, if you've never been in there before, if you have, you'll see we got a brand new homepage. Sending much respect and love to all the developers who went in to make sure that was deployed today. But there's a whole new version of Secret Energy coming. It's funny that we only have about 15% of the new Secret Energy in right now. It's just all React and JS guys that need to now do their thing, and that's going to be happening over the next couple months. But with this new upgrade of everything that we're doing, the goal is to have a way to how we're sustaining ourselves. And that brings me to the conclusion of all this, that if we're noticing on the blockchain, a lot of these projects don't actually have real utilities. And I keep saying that over and over again. It's real speculation, it's yield. What we've done is we're not only developing Web3 technologies, Web3 software, such as our Toroidal economy software, our text-to-image software, where when we tie it into our token, that becomes our utility. But also we have actually real products. We have a real maker space to where we can crank out even consumer electronics that are optimized for mindfulness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to answer any questions around what was said today. I am going to probably show, our new stock library that we put together. And yeah, so it looks like I covered pretty much everything that is here today in a concise way, just so you can understand what we're doing here over at Spirit Tech Laboratories. Wholeness. All right, so let me see. I guess we're over here. Okay, so I'm forward again. Let me fix my mics. I'll fix my mics 1 second. All right, so if you have a question. Okay, and let me see here 1 second. Let me fix this for them. Okay, so you should be able to hear me on this side now. Okay. All right. Give me 1 second, ma'am. Hold this 1 second. All right. So, because what we're going to do is we're actually going to take first questions through the chat. So if you have a question, you could type question, because I noticed that when we get into the verbal questions, sometimes the question is either not formulated or kind of opens the gate for stuff that doesn't allow us to go fast as we would want to. So I am asking everyone to, if you do have a question, just out of courtesy of others today, if you could just type it in, that would be awesome, and then we can actually get your question answered. I'm going to start off with the questions inside of the chat here in Zoom, and then Sean is going to funnel me some questions also here in Zoom. I think we can just keep it centralized here. And if you do have a question, just type in question right before that, what you have to say, and then I'll go ahead and get to it. So let's see. Okay, so we have a question from our brother Willie, I believe, and he's saying, with the rarity and the benefits of the vector equilibrium, is there a recommended frequency members in our household can use it? Is there a recommended frequency? Oh, okay. So, I need a little clarification on that, because I'm trying to understand if you're saying frequency as there's other frequencies playing in the environment, or how many people may be able to use it that are in the same household, or Yeah. So just give me a little bit more clarification on that, or basically how many people can, possibly touch it. I'm not sure of the question. Okay. So another question here is, those were all sold out when I last checked. When will they come back in stock? They have not been in stock. Unfortunately, the only thing that we can do is set it to not in stock. That's just kind of how it's reading on the system, versus it's saying that it's going to be released at a certain time. We decided, since they were done right around the time that we were now launching into this launch with Warriors of Love, we decided to actually put them in as IRLs, because a lot of people were still saying, I know the NFT thing is cool, but we'd rather have something physical. So we were like, okay, well, there's 10 vector equilibriums that are scattered about the 980 Warriors of Love. Okay. Then there's another 20 vector equilibriums in the last 981, 982. All those have vector equilibriums in there. So there's a chance for someone to win one, like a, what do they call that? Mystery box? Yeah, I got it this time. There's a chance to win it like a mystery box just in purchasing a normal NFT. If your NFT is holding that black box in its hand, then that's the one. And there are 10 of those inside of that collection on the first part. And there's another 20 of them in the last 20. So let me keep going. So let me see. Friends can't use, but what about close family? Okay, so thank you for clarifying that, Willie. So it is better for, and this is just something that we have dialed into. I can't tell people what to do, but what we notice with the vector equilibrium is that it's really like a personal object. Like, there's certain things in your life that you may have as a personal object. Let's say, like, that was his hat, or that was his cane. And so it's something that for sure it would be passed to someone. When let's say, if you decide to glide up on it and say, hey, my son, here, you can have my vector equilibrium. And by all means, I'm sure that there would be some form of still energetics that they would feel from you from this object. But letting a lot of people put their hands on it is very similar to allowing a lot of people to put their hands on, like, a crystal that you have personally. And, you sleep with this crystal, it's on your chest or whatever, and you got this relationship with this crystal. Now, everybody's holding this crystal, following this crystal, touching this crystal. It's just not a good idea, because these things, they have a tendency to strengthen themselves once they can create a form of basically strengthen themselves once they can create a form of what they're interacting with. But then when something else interacts with it, it will have to then change that form. And so if it's something about, it's called, basically we just call it the array. And you can see this with magnets. It happens more with the poles. It's like the poles start to weaken or change, especially with magnets. We've noticed, you want to pop that thing on? We've noticed with magnets that the poles will weaken when you just allow a lot of people to come in contact with it versus when you actually just come in contact with it, the poles either stay the same or they get greater. And you can tell that by how strong it begins to snap back into the device. So what are the metrics that are actually controlling this? We can only say it's because the pattern is being disturbed. So we're not also saying that, well, somebody else has kind of got negative energy or bad energy, so they're messing it up. We're just saying that they're kind of confusing it as to what bandwidth that it's specifically programmed to. And so hopefully that makes it a little bit more clear why we are like, maybe this is something that you want to keep as your own personal thing. Got to have something for yourself, right? So this question is that the waitlist is the vector equilibrium a mobile appliance or can handle dynamic external energies, as you said, personally, meaning keep it in the home space. So this thing can go everywhere. That's what the box is for. So even if, you find yourself out at a retreat or something like that, you can put it inside of its containment and then you can take it with you. Everything is really durable. That's why it's kind of like just that box rather than something that, could either be broken or something like that. It's pretty durable. Also, the outside is really to protect what is inside and also to reinforce the magnetic field, and it also holds the serial number. So, yeah, I mean, you can see this is the white one here. Also, I actually didn't mention here on the front, there is another cymatic, right? And so, and it's on element that can hold the vibration. So technically how this is designed is that when you receive it, it's like clean and it's clear. And this is why even that a person getting rid of their vector equilibrium, I'm not even sure like how smart that is, because then, somebody else, now you have somebody else's that has their energy on it. So, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about it, is that it's really just personal, but it can actually go anywhere. And it has what it needs to contain itself. It runs on magnets. It doesn't run on batteries. Another question is are the electronic devices configured to work after the dielectric pole shift on our infinite plane? If all the magnets in the world shift, then these magnets will shift too. There's just not enough evidence except for if you go and flush the toilet on the North Pole, it spins in one direction. And then you go on the South Pole, you flush the toilet, it spins in the other direction. You can check that. And then they have seen times where when there's a real pole shift, that the direction will change, right? So this particular direction is a spin up. So even if the pole changes, because the vector equilibrium, just so you understand, the shape, the cuboctahedron itself, which is known as the 12 around 1, I'll have to just kind of come in just on that. This is why there's Jesus and then the disciples, right? So there's 12 disciples and then there's 1. So it's 12 around 1. And then everything you see in occultism, you'll start noticing this 12 around 1 phenomenon, because it boils down to an actual shape. And in this shape, the field of this shape is basically the three-dimensional version of a torus field. And so the shape by itself has power. And everybody that really understands cymatics, the laws of geometries, et cetera, are aware of the vector equilibrium, but more than likely through their dogmatic storylines versus what it actually is to have a vector equilibrium, that shape, that vibration, or that frequency as a physical object that's also interacting with a non-physical space. But it is the geometry specifically that allows that bridging between the physical and the non-physical to take place. So instead of having like just a bunch of guessing, that's the whole thing about Spirit Tech and the products that we use and that we choose to develop is that there's no guesswork, right? Like you can't guess. It's like a car. If you turn it on, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So then you go back, you figure out why it's not working. And then you fix that part, and now we got a working car. So that's how we address everything here. So when we start talking about, well, how are we going to clean a space that's hyperdimensional, you need a carrier to do that. You need something that reaches into that space. So sound can only reach into a certain part of the space. Sound doesn't always become the best carrier. So then we have radio frequency. Then we have light. Then we have noble elements. Then we have metamaterials. And so it's just like, how are you choosing to interact with the field, and what are you looking to accomplish within the field? What we're looking to accomplish is also the intentions, because remember that when things are developed or designed, the original intentions of how they're designed also reside in them if they can resonate. Now, everything can resonate, but some things resonate a lot less than others. But when you're dealing with something that is in itself a resonant field, it's taking on the resonance of this collective. That's why they're configured in an array. And those resonances have to do with everything that we're talking about in the manifesto, about what we are here to do in this society, what we want to do with our energy, how we want to maintain balance, how we want to go into this hyperintelligence, how we don't want to also overwhelm ourselves, how we're not trying to sign ourselves off, our souls away, and all this, any other weird stuff is not in the projection. And we're coming in clean. We're coming in with exactly, that's why I say the reason why they call them noble elements is because they don't deviate from what they are. And that's what you'll notice about when you start dealing with monatomics is you can always expect a certain relationship between gold or between iridium, et cetera. It will never change that relationship. It's a noble, just like in the word that we use, somebody that is noble is honorable in this way. And so that's the energy that we're bringing into the actual accumulation of this particular device. So I just wanted to kind of put a little time in it because I saw there was no questions. So I'm going to rapid fire now since there's quite a few. Does owning a vector equilibrium with unique IRL, or I guess that would be just basically a serial number, give you access to the Secret Energy Foundation and Creator DAO? In the beginning, it will be the ones that are tied into the NFTs because the NFTs are really the actual token that we need. And we're not... When we give we didn't want to create two, basically. We didn't want to have, okay, that would take us to actually have to launch an NFT that's just vector equilibrium. So it would be probably just a picture of a vector equilibrium. And we decided, that's probably not creative enough. So let's just put it in the hand of our NFTs. So the first ones that come around, they have to be paired with the NFT for it to have access to Secret Energy Foundation and Creator DAO in relation to the governance model. Another question here is amazing presentation, Wholeness. Thanks so much. I kind of went through a few different spaces there. It was fun, and I got to do it again at 7:30. So I'm actually amped up. Even I wish I could just go and do that right now because I'm like, let's drink some water and go at it again. So the question is, the vector equilibrium, is there a possibility of configuring a whole space with this array, multiple of them? So that whoever's inside benefits at once like a bubble. And that actually, I'm glad you brought that up because with a vector equilibrium inside of a space, like we haven't been able to completely measure the field. But I will say the field is at least as big as a house. So you can count on that those that are actually in the vicinity of the vector equilibrium will be able to benefit from some of the benefits of the vector equilibrium. It's kind of like if we're all in the same space and there's an air purifier, we're all going to benefit from that cleaner air. Somebody's requesting to turn the mic back up. Okay, maybe I should just get a little closer to the mic. That mic is super hot. The other one, let me hit this one just a little bit. Came in a little bit earlier. Also, I wanted to mention that, through this whole process, it's been a lot of staying consistent and sticking to the vision because there could be a lot of distractions. Like when you're going through this process, you make mistakes. Sometimes, you get all the way to the end of the project and you realize that, it's not really time. Everybody's not really feeling it. And there's also, there's a cost in time. There's a cost in energy. Obviously I could do other things. Like I feel like my mind can go at anything. So if I wanted to do real estate, I'd probably do really good at real estate. If I wanted to do, work on cars, I'd probably be really good at working on cars. So I could really do anything, but what I choose to do is what is going to actually be of the greatest benefit to my soul. And that's what I would encourage everyone to do is that when you start coming into metaphysics, it doesn't just become something that's intangible. In fact, it's quite the opposite. You actually realize where the bridge is between what we would say is the physical and the non-physical, and how both of the worlds do bear such a stark resemblance to each other once you understand what you're looking at. And then this allows you to begin to really just go into your destiny as far as what you're programming into the reality and choosing to live into. versus your fate. Okay, and that was interesting, the correlation between those two words as we've gotten from our legal documentation. The fate, where it's just like, that's just what's going to happen to you, versus destiny is like what you really can create and what you can really change. So what should you expect when you take monatomic gold, and can you mix monatomics? So my experience personally, because I can only talk about my experience and why I got into it, is that I felt a pickup in my own energetic field. It even happened visually for me. So I started actually seeing things kind of spiral a little bit. And I was like, wow, what can actually cause that kind of phenomena? And then that's when I started learning more about it. But then I guess with everything, you got to figure out what you're going to do with it. Also, I would say that my body, from especially these long stints of purification processes, meaning kind of getting out of the crazy eating for a while, being out of a toxic environment, being in nature more, going to the beach, quite often, and just doing things that were related to the body actually gaining more nourishment from nature, that my body became tuned to also be very, like an Ayurvedic's body has to be tuned for them to know when they take something, where it went and what change it's making. The body can be rather dense if you're just kind of cruising through the field all the time. Maybe, it's just like a lot of things in your life that are not helping your vibratory field. Maybe you're smoking cigarettes, you're living in the worst area, you don't eat good food, and you just start stacking that on. Your field becomes more dense because it needs to be, because it's got to take on all of that and still maintain some type of stability. But that density oftentimes doesn't allow you to be as subtle or empathic to the fields that come with some of these things that play around in those realms. A lot of this stuff, like when you start talking about light, when you're talking about radio frequencies and things like that, this is stuff not obviously visible. Radio frequencies not visible by the eye. You can't necessarily hear them unless it's just like a slight ringing in your ear. But the language itself, though, is way more rich, meaning that you can get more data, if you may, more instructions, more potential out of something that is in that kind of subtle realm. So it's better for you to even optimize yourself to actually be more perceptive of the subtle aspects of self, rather than even trying to get things like, you can't compare DMT to monatomics at all, right? DMT, you're flying by the seat of your pants, but you're going to come down. Monatomics it's a relationship with gold across the universe. Like, gold never changes. Gold is, as they say, the same amount of gold that's been here is the same amount of gold that's here now. That's always been here. Same amount of gold that's here now. And so it basically puts you into a state of understanding that vibrational frequency across time. So everybody that wore gold, people who were made from gold, people who worshiped gold, brass has that same thing. And that's why they make Buddha statues out of brass, because it has a way of collecting the resonance field and actually being able to broadcast that resonance field over space and time, because they're also very interlinked. And that's what we've learned about working with subtle frequencies, is they cross through what you call time. There's transmissions of knowledge coming from what you call the future right now. You just need either a consciousness to be able to receive it or to develop a receiver. This was the way that we remain in tune, for real. And our temples in the world were our first receivers, and communities, or what you would say is tribes or cultures, received different levels of the transmissions of the whole. So they would build like the transmissions that they were receiving, and then they would become like, if you wanted to go on that transmission, when we went through the world would go on a pilgrimage, where we would go like a clock into other spaces that belong to other vibrations or energy. Then we would come into those fields, and then we would dial in everything that was needing to be dialed in that field from the memory banks of those who lived and went through that process. Then it would shift, and then you would now come into this new experience again. There would be an upgrade then. And then when it finally, the clock struck 12, if you may, and the 13th hour, that would be when the whole system was complete, and you would have gained, in that case, all of the rings, as it would be called, because it was like a spiral going on around your body, which later on became the 12 heliacal or the 12 helixes of the DNA string, and then the 13th pole running through the center, which would give you access to the elevator. We were going to try to get some footage of the elevator room today, which was a room that we've kind of configured to do that, but I felt like that we were probably going to put a lot in the presentation, and I was just kind of going to drag off. Like, so why should we show the elevator room later, but we'll get to it in the future. How does your product speed up the alchemical process? I'm assuming that we're talking about the alchemical process within inside the human body. So as we discussed that, all the devices are configured in an array. So the first 30 that are delivered have a specific periodic configuration. So that means that out of all the elements, from magnesium to iridium to silver to all the elements that are in different cuboctahedrons, when they all come together, if you place that all on the table, it would kind of look like the crystal grids that people would make from time to time, but it's actually configured completely from noble metals. And so your alchemical process is the growth of the collective of all of those noble metals and the arrays that they're actually attached to. And I know that sometimes, that's why I meant when we did FIACO, that was just like way over everybody's head. But the military is programming water. The Hollywood backed up all the classic films on one drop of water. So it's like when you start explaining this to people, sometimes they'd be like, I don't know. And that's exactly the realm we don't really deal with. It's got to work. It's got to do what it says it's going to do. It's been 4 years trying to figure out how to make this thing do that. I wanted to create something that when you put it in the atmosphere, that it began to actually filter that atmosphere also spiritually, beside orgone, because orgone would do that, but it holds the energy. And if anybody knows about orgone, you can get sick from a piece of orgone because it'll suck all the energy out in the negative door. And then when you touch it, especially after a lot of people touch it, all of it will, if you're charged, it will discharge on you. And you even will feel like a little magnetic shock. Then you feel like this weird taste in your mouth, like you've held a phone, like a radiation kind of taste. And that's all the negative door, which in this case, you can see the orgone device like a Ghostbuster, if it's configured properly, the Ghostbuster thing, where they got the ghost, and then now they slide this thing in, and then it opens up, and the ghost goes in the box. That's like a small orgone. Bigger orgones don't have that much of an issue with that, but the smaller orgones especially, they're almost like one-time use, and then you got to go and bury those things because literally there's a ghost in there. I'm just saying, like, I even thought about having a containment unit, like, yo, y'all go pull that stuff up and send it somewhere. Just send it to this address, and we'll deal with it. But that's what happens with orgone. So we wanted to create something that would discharge its field through magnetics and reharmonize the field rather than kind of creating a container for negative energies or imbalanced energies. It's important to understand that we're not talking about positive and negative as you understand negative as being a bad one. So we'll just say the distortion of the energy, meaning that the field is not correct. The field is distorted. Next question is, did you do a monatomic holmium? Nope, because I don't believe that's on the periodic table, but it'd be interesting to just do a simple chest test, as I call it, meaning take that thing, put it right on the solar plexus, and go to sleep and holler at your boy and let me know what those dreams are like, meaning that you don't need any of this that I'm showing you. I want to make this very clear. Like, we're deep into aesthetics now. Like, we're going for the extra credit. So now, we have things that fulfill a variety of levels of purposes. But is it what you need? No. You need to actually understand how to separate your wants from your needs. That's the biggest thing to getting to sovereignty. So in this case, what we've done is we've given opportunity. That's why there's not a bunch of vector equilibrium, so it can't be a world solution. We're not making anybody buy it, so it can't be something by force. So it's only what a person chooses to do, but everybody won't have that choice because there's not a bunch of them anyway. And so we put something together, it represents the essence of what we're really about, and we used all of our engineering in order to be able to configure it, and then now here it is. And so, that's just my contribution to this part of the reality. I like doing stuff like this also. Like, to be honest, as I said before, I write better than I talk because I can erase. And I would rather be a Willy Wonka over here building, the chocolate factory with a couple Oompa Loompas than I would be like being rushed in front of a million people who are at the end of the day may or may not be on the same wavelength of where I'm at. Because I really see, like I deal with the future and the present, right? So the past is accumulation, and I respect the past, and we stand on the past like a foundation. But the future also, somebody has to have that vision. That's like the eagle eye, the third eye. All of that is about vision. It's about being able to see what's going to happen, and then positioning your craft, because it's like you're looking out there, you're guiding yourself, you see the stars, and then you're positioning the craft where it's supposed to go. But you got to understand that when we're on a big vessel, do you ever see a big boat with only one person driving it? Think about this. Go to YouTube, type in $30 million boat, and see a buddy who bought the boat is on the boat by himself. It's not going to happen. Now, think about the old days. The real reason why, because they got all the technology and stuff now. Even then, it takes a whole crew. You would tear up some stuff. But still, in the olden days, you got all these stuff on the boat. You got the sails, you got the row, you got all these different things. So why is everybody just going to agree to come on this boat and work with you? There's real work on the boat. Now that things are more optimized, now it's a lot more easier. But I'm talking about back in the day, to hit the sails, to go up in the little, what do they call that little thing? You go way up there on top of the sail, and you over there looking out for the enemy. Like, this ain't. So you need benefits is what I'm saying. That's why I was saying in the other bills, social media networks, they should be paying you. Anybody that has your time in some way, shape, or form, they should be saying that, hey, we can build a plan together. And then you got to see something clear to actualize the plan. So right now, if we put IRLs out, vector equilibriums out, right? We put out 1,000 Warrior of Loves NFTs, and then we just hold. We keep building what we build, keep doing what we do. We keep refining the network more and more. We move into Web3. Software developers are doing what they do right now. I think they may be just now leaving for the day, but that will all come to fruition, and it will be tied into the systems that we create. But those original things are the things that are determining where the value is determined, meaning that what the NFT really is saying, well, if you had an NFT from Creator DAO in 2022, and like our timelines are short, I'd be saying like 2 years, 3 years. But real investors, like think about real investors. They're not thinking about cashing out in the next month. That's what the whole cryptocurrency thing created, and everybody keeps getting wrecked because you can't expect for something that you're supporting for you to just rug pull your support when you want to, or have somebody that even can do that. So when you start thinking about how to design systems that can be impervious to that, right away, you're not going to have a bunch of people who are not really supposed to be in this space anyway. They hung up already. Once I went into one of those parts a couple minutes ago, they were like, oh, no, this what? Jesus. They gone. So what you're dealing with is a filter. So a lot of, again, the projects that we're seeing is like, yes, sell 1 million of them. Let's get 1 million. What's going to look like when you have 1 million people who don't know what the hell is going on all up in your stuff now? They all in your house. And it's like, they're just interested in the financial and all this kind of stuff. So that's not even how this is rolling. If you notice, it's like the people that are actually acquiring this and getting involved with this in the beginning, this was to extend it to them. Even Secret Energy as a network, we're 13, 14 years. We already have a brand. We already have 100 and something products. We already have stuff that we've already done. People are still looking at me like, let's see if he does it. It's like, yo, what do you mean? What are you watching for? Are you watching my shadow or something? We already did it. And now here we are again we're coming into a new space, and we're going to be disruptive. Meaning that the disruptive unicorn is coming through. Like, it's a big thing. Like, now there's almost no industries left. As I said, startup and the idea of startup has died. Most people are just trying to hang on to what's going to happen with this next level of the supply chain. We have our own supply chain. We actually can make our stuff from scratch. So it's a difference, but it's not also readily noticed, because sometimes people will say, you got to ask people, what are you even looking for? And this is sometimes even when you're in that competition with trying to get people to really feel where you're coming from. You got to ask yourself, how are they supposed to react? Like, what are you looking for, though? Let's get to that part. Then you realize, oh, You don't even know if you're getting that response yet because you don't even have anything designed to tell you you're getting that response yet. You don't have things that can, like you're saying, you want to create value. Where's the value going to be held? Within our minds? I mean, yeah, first, but we need something physical that person can go and redeem that though. Like if I'm in this with you and you're saying it's going to be valuable, I need something that's going to be able to extend that value or bridge that value to me. Because that's also what happens with our ideas and our creativity is that we at times don't have the whole pipeline from the time from your creation to the time that it starts to benefit you. The whole pipeline put together. That's what Creator DAO is. We show you this is what we can put together amongst with doing all of the other stuff. Like we have other platforms. There's WealthyBot. There's text to image now. There's a whole nother thing happening. But what it is though is I noticed that me being in a multidisciplinary sometimes becomes a problem. Because sometimes people in one particular corridor of their mind, are trying to figure out how am I in this other corridor now? And if I'm still in alignment with where I was before, all my stuff is aligned. I have one final thing to say, and I think there's a few more, 44, there's a couple more questions here anyway. About AI, the elephant in the room, okay? Because a lot of me is like, well, shoot, we was looking through some of the sovereignty work. They say AI is going to be the biggest problem here in the future. I already told you that. So why are you in it? Because I'm the problem that they can't solve. What happens when someone figures out how to take something that is powerful, that is generally now going to become a weapon, and use it to end the whole war altogether? How do you do that? Because it can only just be a piece. It can't be the whole thing. The AI that is being referred to as the issue is not the AI that is being deployed right now. We're in the spookism. The AI that's the issue is in the future if everybody is forced to tie their ID, license, and all this stuff in, just like when they made everybody take the shot, because you don't have any money, now you need to go and sign into the system and give up all your data to it. And you don't got no other alternative but to do that. That's the one that we're talking about. The one that creates pictures, the one that beat Buddy at AlphaGo, the one that beat Buddy at chess. Those are the ones that we can learn from. Because if you beat that AI at chess, no human will be sitting at the table with you. And this is what you have to realize. Like, we've been hindered so long. Like, when I generate an image from the text to image AI, it's not showing me the image AI can create. It's showing me all of the images from the collective mind and what it would look like if we asked the collective mind with that data set to create a picture of this. Thank you. I guess they just having a side conversation. Thank you. I'll take that. You know what I mean? I take that. Everybody else here will too. So again, I just wanted to address, that so people are like, well, he's not mentioning anything or saying anything about it. No, I'm very well aware. Blockchain too. That's why I said, give yourself a plan. 3 years. Now you can imagine through this whole next 3 years, watch this. There are going to be people that never even started planning. Also checking yourself. Did you make the last cut? And if you didn't, you need to speed up. What was the last cut? When they said you had to take a shot and you can't keep the job anymore. Or you can't do X. If that happened to you and you end up having to indulge in the juice, you really need to know that you're behind. I'm not going to soft coat this for you at all. You're behind. If you didn't have to do that, your timing is great. Keep going, because it means that every time there's a cut, like, everybody from this point, if you didn't do that. So right now, everybody that was like 5 years ago, 7 years ago, some of y'all caught it even a little bit late. Y'all got good guides or whatever, and was like, you know what? Something's coming. And I'm going to start preparing myself. I'm going to start getting myself together. I'm going to start, again, figuring out my wants and my needs, start developing my environment. And then when the whole thing popped and they were like, you have to do this. It doesn't matter if there could be water in it. I'm not saying that, it's got all this stuff in it, even though, hey, as a chemist, graphene in the blood, I don't think it's a good idea. But what I'm just saying on the whole is it could be water. The moment we get to a point where somebody tells us what to do, or else we can't enjoy things that was our norm, that's a signal. That's an alert. That's a red alert on the dimension. That's to let you know, hey, you're a little bit below sea level. You're below the banks. You gotta get it together. You gotta stabilize yourself, because now you're being forced to do stuff because your true rights are being removed because you didn't know about balance. They're on the right. Who's right? But that's a direction. There's also left. So if your right and your left is not balanced, then when you are forced to do something, to see the left, somebody says, what are the left? It's the left-hand path. It's occultism. People don't realize Christians are left-hand path people. They run on a theism that if they don't do something, then something bad is going to happen to them. And nobody can live that way. That's not free. That's not being free at all. That's not a sovereign at all. You do things because you want to do them, not because you have to do them. So any dogma that's like, yo, this is what you have to do, then you need to look at that and say, okay, I think I'm getting into a realm where I'm starting to become disempowered. And it's a signal to you to get back to sovereignty. That's why the first sovereigns rolled in on a boat. There's a lot of ancient stuff and people are scared of it. That's what I'm saying, like in the Arabic language, the Wuju al-Quran, the Anunnaki, the boats, the Allah being written like a boat, like Pierre Sabac's book talks about, the Sibyls being able to control commerce, the celestial space being the same as the ocean. There's a lot of deep stuff going on, but it does still boil down to those basic principles. And if you want to refine yourself right now in society and not go into chaos and depression, you got to look at everything around you as an opportunity. You need to have a plan, and you need to know that plan has to involve your sovereignty. And then you make a plan. You don't go nuts. You don't drive everybody around you crazy, throw all your stuff away, get rid of everybody, piss everybody off, cut up all your cards. Hey, if that worked for you, maybe. But everybody that I saw do that, it creates more problems than it solves. Sit down first, make a plan. Now, we also put a free course. It's Gemstone University's work, golden, gems. That's why they call it Gemstone University. Y'all overdoing yourself, overachiever over here. Gemstone University, we put it inside the university. You could take the course there. You can even get a certificate and really understand how to remove yourself from the system and what that is really going to take from every single level, and to understand that through the etymology, to understand that through the legal system, to understand what we are in many ways racing. Like our strategy right now is to head them off at the pass. What does that mean? They got our children for sure. Go look. If you're saying we winning, I'm not even with you, because you're not looking. You're delusioned. They got all of our ilk. So what this means is, if this continues and there's not something that changes that in the future, they go into a different level of bondage. It's going to be totally different than what we even experienced. So now we're looking at the scene. Now they deployed the AI, weapons grade AI over there at Palantir too. So this means all of our minds now are kind of being used against us, because they're not using it to figure out how we're going to fix problems like diseases. This thing was fixing diseases in 2 hours, and it took us 200 years damn near, because it's just a collective knowledge. If we were all together and all connected and not versus each other, we would be able to pull this right out of our mind, every single solution, faster than AI. But now everybody is all separated. We only have, AI is basically a data set, a dictionary of everything that has been done in all the images and all the pictures. So what is the plan? You got to use a quantum technology. When I say head them off at the pass, I didn't say run behind them and they took off way before you and you don't have the speed to catch them. No, there needs to be, somebody needs to know another route. So up in this quantum vehicle, we advanced the actual imagination. The imagination is the most crippled part of the human being. And this is why we can't even seem to imagine what life would be like without these scumbags. People can't imagine, well, what would this look like without the economy? That's why you see countries fold. The latest one on the list is what? Not Angkor Wat, but what's the island out there in India? Somebody will type it in the chat here. But they're the latest on the list, Sri Lanka. So the latest on the list where the whole country fold. So are you just to assume that people are not spiritual enough? Are you just to assume that they don't have the right diets? Are you just assume it's because of AI or because of the devil or whatever you could come up with to why their whole country is sliding and now the women and children and the mothers and the fathers are now going to go hungry? It's more to it than that. And so when you're going to be bringing in solutions, those solutions have to be vast. And they have to have the power and the potential to be able to make the actual change. That's what you owe yourself. And if you're in command of others, meaning that maybe you're like the leader of your household or something, a lot of this does fall on you because everybody that is around you is really making decisions based on what you do. And that's why I come in with responsibility. I'm telling you directly. We're already at a stage where we have to really be very clever at what we do, and we have to have a certain time frame of how long we're going to be involved with something, and then we have to have an end game. So what is the plan? As I said, get everyone as sovereign as possible and out of the system in 3 years. So then whatever they do from there is decentralized. Like like we were talking about insurance today. Like, obviously, if you have insurance on your car, then you're now into that system. So how do you work that? Either you have a driver. Well, now you got to find a driver in your community, or you underwrite your own insurance. You need to have a certain amount of capital, and then you put that capital inside of escrow, and then you write your own policy. So there's always a way. The system has provided a way. It has to work like that. But we need people that come together that understand that that is the actual cause and the purpose that we're actually working towards. And you can't imagine that certain things that you see in the beginning are going to be taking place indefinitely. Meaning that when you're building a house, that's not how it's always going to look. It's going to change. It's going to take on different shapes to ultimately become what is to be. So I just wanted to make it very clear to everyone here that we're very mindful about the things that we're engaging in and the dangers that have been said about some of these things for sure. Like we almost in many ways were the pioneers and the architects of the awareness of telling people about the dangers within many of these things to be able to get to this point now, to be able to navigate ourselves properly through them, to be able to extract the benefits of them, to be able to fix something that is a problem that is so huge, most people won't even stand up to it. Fixing racial problems, people don't stand into. They just polarize. Fixing the issue with our future and our children. I got friends like my friend Lemuel Life, working with children for 25 years, 30 years, inner city youth, really there every single day with almost no support. Not at all by far any of the most supported nonprofit organizations. So we are left with that responsibility, not excuses. And that's what I was saying before about our children. We can't keep giving them excuses. And in the future, you're not going to be able to tell your children, if you have them, that you didn't do anything to participate in potentially getting them out of the construct that we know that things could potentially be going into. So I'm not going to say anything else about that. I think I've said enough. The last question here, or some of the last question is, what is the effect that your product has on the senses? How would it feel? Is there feeling similar to the effects of a sound bowl? Is more of like the effects of when you're holding bismuth, the magnet. Thank you. Get some bismuth, the magnet that does not attract. Meaning it's a magnet, but it doesn't function in the same way as most magnets function. And if you get some pieces of raw bismuth, and if they're used for an industrial grade, they'll have a positive and a negative pole on them, even though when you put them together, they won't snap. And when you hold them in your hands and you put them together, you'll start noticing after a while that you have this feeling like your brain is you even feel it's like a magnetic and electric feeling in the teeth, because the teeth are piezoelectric, they're porcelain. So you start feeling this feeling like, it's funny, I got to explain it now, but there's a feeling there. That's the main way I can explain it. And so that's what it feels like. It feels like that there is some type of conductive connection between the two poles of your body. Question, would one need the DAO and the NFT to purchase the vector? If no, when approximately will the vector equilibrium arrive? Are we talking months, year? Can we do something to obtain this early as possible? Just to answer your question directly, months. That's realistic. Like, it's not that we can't produce them. It's that we're actually doing a lot of things. And it takes time to actually put the vector equilibriums together. So we have those 30. And then I for sure would like to produce more and make another array. We do have the materials to do it, but it's just flat out the time that it takes to actually construct one. And just on a real time level, it takes a complete day for this part of the unit, just this, to even be done. So it's 28 hours, so a little bit over a day for the array to be done. But fortunately, we can actually create two of these at the same time. So we kind of have this production thing that we can kind of ramp up production just a little bit. So we're expecting probably in a few months. And no, you won't need to be a part of the DAO or have an NFT to actually acquire one then. How would the vector affect you based on your age and over time? Does that affect to grow or crystallize the longer you have it? So again, just to be very clear, what it's going to do is it's going to do its best to actually keep the environment that's around you harmonized for the growth of your energy. If that is going to assist you in a positive way as far as aging over time, then that is what's going to occur. And so I don't want to make claims about vector equilibrium in respect to others' personal lives, because it, of course, does really matter to how you're conducting your own life. I used to have a friend that would use the colonic machine as a way of eating. Like, he would basically eat bad food and then go use the colonic machine. And I felt like that was a little bit, it was like, since he knew that he could clean out the mess, then he didn't have a problem creating the mess. And so I don't want to kind of create that thing with the vector equilibrium where people feel like that they could go do bad things and then get it all cleaned out of their field. So it's really like something that it's intuitively is tapping into that space of where your energetic field is. Does the zodiac sign Ophiuchus represent the one around the 13? Yes, it does. Any insights on why the body would have increased urination for several months while drinking daily hydrogen water? Yes, because it's still actually there's another reason beside that it's not absorbing hydrogen, because that only happens for about 3 days to a week. It's because that hydrogen, so if you understand what hydrogen is, it's like basically creating water. That's why the byproduct of hydrogen gas is water. So I have a theory that when you drink hydrogen, it actually begins to suck water through your pores, because you don't feel dehydrated when you have to pee, which is the phenomena, right? If it was sucking water out of the system. So I feel like that somehow because it's in the system, its byproduct is becoming water. So it's pulling that water right from the air. I mean, that's my theory right now, because I've been trying to explain that to myself also about, prolonged urination cycles. And obviously the water is very clear and everything. And you're kind of like, well, wait a minute, I didn't drink that much water though. So how am I evacuating that much water? Where did it come from? All right, so the last question I believe here is the mint fully allow listed, or there is a public sale also? What's the split, the market conditions currently? What is the team plans if all 999 don't mint out of the initial sale? So the day of mint is August the 22nd. 3 days before that, August the 19th, there is the private sale, which will be for all those that are whitelisted. And August 15th, I believe, is the day that we announce the winners and some more special information, which is the conclusion of the quest that everybody is on now in order to have the opportunity to win Vector Equilibriums and Warriors of Love NFTs. I will also say that even if somebody's just coming in now, you may be looking at it like, wow, there's somebody already in first, second, third place. I'm not going to get there. But remember, we're having the giveaway also, meaning that you're earning tickets through the process also. And in the end, we're going to draw those tickets. I do also wanted to mention that those who have, well, I guess I got to take a step back. I haven't made a full decision on that, but I feel like that we want to give as many opportunities as possible for anyone to actually win at least the WOL NFT. And because of that, I didn't feel like it would be really fair if we submitted the tickets of if someone already was in first, second, and third place. So that's something I'm still going to kind of dial into, but I do want to give as many people as possible the opportunity to actually have an opportunity to win the NFT. And again, I just don't think that unless you, well, if you're in first place, you already have two, so that we should probably open it up to others to have an opportunity to win. So there's really no clarification around that, so we'll paint that in as we go. Feels good. I'm just scrolling through the last few questions here just to make sure there's nothing left. All right. So, yeah, that's the last question. So this is what we'll do. Wow, 2 hours and 30 minutes. Okay. So that was great, though. Like, I guess we can probably break this up into two parts and push it out later on, at least so others have the opportunity to see what we're unveiling, especially with the Vector Equilibriums, et cetera. I also want to say that generally within anything in life, you must be passionate about it. Like if you're gonna really see it through, you got to be passionate about it. And sometimes, if we're looking for certain indicators or markers within things that we're getting involved in, you also kind of have to look at, even the founders and the people who are developing things around it and see, one, if, your vision aligns with their vision. And then two, how passionate they feel about it. And it's because oftentimes you run into things and you have to go through it. And if you don't have the passion and the potential and the strength, you may try to avoid it or go around it or ignore it. I feel like life is constantly always serving that up on my platter. It's like I'll have to deal with something and I'll be like, well, everybody doesn't like this. Why do I have to be the one? You know what I mean? Because it's like, well, my name, my reputation, my energetics, all that be in play. And it's like when I choose to keep going through, I do gain some real levels. Like I gain a whole nother level of awareness. And I get to a point when I'm finally at a certain stage and I look back and I was like, man, you were even afraid to make that jump. And there were so many also saying that you shouldn't do it. Like I was like, yo, don't leave Atlanta. People like, don't go nowhere. What are you doing? Come back. And I'm like, I'm gone. And it was the best choice I made in life. So I'm still following that energy because that energy is never led me into anything wrong. It has been a deep level of education. I feel like that it brings back in play that it's highly possible now more than ever that like when you see your great grandmother or your great great grandparents, they love you, but they also want you to be as strong as them. So they will put you through what is necessary for you to get to their level. And they have the strength to not stop the process of you going through your lessons. So I feel like in many ways that what our ancestors did was they put all this together. Everything from the legal systems to the popes, to the AI, to the weapons, to the whole nine, that they put all of this together in one huge, what you would feel like is a replica of the real world, a real consciousness, so that we would start going through this experience and then really challenge ourselves to really see the best of ourselves rather than being the sideliners. Like I said, like the medic, the military medic, that's not something that he had to sign up for. He didn't have to sign up for the military at all. Some are like, shoot, if I'm going to the military, at least I'm going to have a gun in my hand. But this person was like, look, I'm going to practice this to heal. I know I'm going to encounter people who are close to their death. I know I'm going to encounter people who even die. I'm going to see the blood. I'm going to see blown off limbs. But I'm going. That's a different type of build. That's a different type of calling. It's a very mature state of consciousness and way of being. It's somebody that's very solid within what they are about. No matter what everything else is doing with it, what everybody else got going on, and what their sideline stories are, it's how are you operating in this matrix? And are you ready for this sovereignty? Because this sovereignty, as I said, like, we're carving a pipeline right now. And that's what my life's work personally is to open up that super speedway between ignorance and advanced intelligence, between depression, debt, slavery, from all of that, like the judgments, all that kind of stuff, to a clear being that is hyper aware of their power and their potential and are linked with others, as we say, other creators, to actually create. Wholeness and Balance Vibrations, thank you so much. We will speak with each other soon. There is a few more events, I heard. This was like, I was like, yo, when I scheduled the 9 events, I was like, yeah, this would be easy, but yo, 9 events. But yeah, today was amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Tribe. Wholeness. I'll set the lines. If you wanted to say wholeness to everyone that's here, that would be awesome. Thank you so much again for spending your time, taking a look at this project and seeing what it can do for you. Wholeness. Medic. Oh yeah, see you tonight. Wholeness.